I think for the purposes of the public meeting, I'll just say on the recording that we're waiting for a quorum and repeat that it's because the Clean Air Agency's power was out up until about 10 minutes ago. So we'll just stand by here until we have our team. We do have 3 new county commissioners today, so we will do a little bit deeper dive on the introduction. So be ready for that, and I'll ask the new members to, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I hope that you're all okay with first names, because that's how I like to do this.
I'm trying to look. Is there a meeting packet I'm supposed to have pulled up?
So look for an email from Debbie Moody.
Okay.
Also in the invite, the calendar invite.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Greg. They must be spinning up the servers still, huh? I don't see Fran and Debbie yet. Oh, Robert's nodding. Okay. The copier next to him is working, though.
I think Robert is coming in from home this morning.
Oh, got it.
So that's why he's on.
That's a significant machine for having at your house. I actually have one behind me, too. So.
I'm chatting with Debbie. It should just be a few minutes.
Okay. Who's the 360 phone number?
That's Bill Peach.
Bill, okay, great. Thank you. Good to hear your voice. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm correct. Bill and Jill, are both newly elected or not?
Yes. Newly elected. All new to this game.
Bill's been with us for a while now.
Bill's okay. So Bill's just moving. And Bill, are you an assignment or an alternate? Like, are you replacing Mary Ellen?
No, I'm replacing Mary Ellen.
Okay, great. Welcome. Hi, Randy.
So I hear we have a new realtor on board.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Fran. We have you.
But I can't hear them. Oh, I didn't turn them. Yeah.
So Randy, we're just waiting for the office to get spun up with the power outage. So just so you know, and anyone else who's joined in the last couple minutes.
These seats are too low.
No problem. So you already recognized our new member?
No, I'm just chit-chatting before we start so I can make sure I do it properly.
Okay. Because Jill, you're a realtor, right?
Real estate agent, yes.
Yes, I am also.
How are you?
Yes.
Where at?
John L. Scott up in Belfair, have been since like 2006 or 7.
Nice.
It's a great education for the things we do as commissioners, I'll guarantee you.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's helped a lot with just being familiar with some of the people and departments at the county here.
Absolutely.
At least I didn't come in completely blind.
No,
although I still feel like I've been blindsided several times.
Yeah. Well, good luck on that. That doesn't change. That'll happen even 3 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll be shocked at how much your real estate education and experience will go in your position.
Good.
Okay, Debbie and Fran, can you help me with whether I have a quorum yet?
We're just counting noses. I think we have 5. Or 6, we've got Greg and Kim and Joan and Jill and Randy. That's 5.
And Bill is the phone number, so that's 6.
So we got a quorum.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get us moving, but first I'll wait. Debbie, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, because that's what really matters, right?
Right.
And then is our public line up, or do we have anyone joining us just before I get going on it?
So Nick is I mean, I'm sure it's up because Nick's here, but nobody's on it. But I don't think
There are
it's.
no
Okay.
callers currently.
Okay, great. Okay, that's enough for me as long as there's no technical issues there. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and call to order the January 13th meeting of the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. After a dark and stormy night locally and a stormy week nationally, we're all here and here to do the good business of the people. And I appreciate you accommodating and getting here. And particularly big thanks to the ORCAA staff team for getting on board when they were in a power outage until about 10 minutes ago. So it's a big leap, and I know you're sitting around in the dark hoping, and I'm glad that we don't have to reschedule this because we have a minimum number of meetings we have to meet according to our bylaws. So with that, we have some new members, so I think it'll be a great time. We'll go ahead and start with our new members, hear from them, you know, where they're from, a little bit about themselves, and then we'll go around and do a little bit more detailed introduction than we would normally do, just so we can try and bring the team together remotely a little bit. So I'm gonna start out in the north. And we have a new commissioner representing Clallam County, Bill Peach. Bill, tell us about yourself.
Thank you very much. I just got out of the dental chair, so if I don't sound quite coherent, I apologize. I've been in the Clallam area for about 30 years. I managed a couple 100,000 acres of timberland for a company called Rayonier. And then I served as executive director for the Coit tribe for a couple of years, and I'm on my second term as county commissioner. My district is the furthest west, and except for certain windy days, it's beautiful out here. I appreciate being able to join you. Mary Ellen and I were both elected at the same time, and Mary Ellen's plate is getting quite full, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and I said, sure, I'm glad to help you.
Welcome, Bill. Good to have you. Okay, so next I'll go to Grays Harbor County, and we have a newly elected county commissioner, Jill, and I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name, so you help me so I can get it right.
It's Jill Warney, and I've lived in Grays Harbor most of my life. I was actually born in PA, Bill, so I have lots of relatives up in your neighborhood.
All right.
Been a real estate agent since '88, and did not want to get into this, but just felt like I had to. It was time, so here I am.
Welcome. It's good to have you. And then in Thurston County, our home county for the office, we have a newly elected county commissioner, Carolina Mejia. Carolina?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Carolina Mejia, and I am the Thurston County Commissioner in District 1, newly elected. I'm excited to be a part of ORCAA and to learn, so it's exciting to meet all of you. I met Jill and I met Jill at the WASAC training earlier on, so it's good to see her again, and Greg as well. So thank you.
Wonderful, welcome. So all three of you, if you haven't already, Fran will reach out and schedule some orientation, and then by next month you'll feel more like you're in the loop of what's going on. So thanks for being here. Let's go around the remainder of the board, and then we'll kick it over to Fran and the staff and our council. I'm Jim Cooper. I'm from the Olympia City Council. I think this is my 10th year on the ORCAA board, and on my day job I work for United Ways of the Pacific Northwest and run a trade association for United Way in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. I'm going to go to my vice chair, Joan. Oh, I'm sorry, my vice chair isn't Joan. That's a different board. I'm sorry. Yeah. Our vice chair is Cynthia Pratt, who I don't see. So, and actually, she might be out of power. I know they had some issues. So, let's go ahead and go to Joan Cathy from Tumwater.
Wow, you made me nervous. I thought you had a private election or something. Yeah.
Wrong board.
I'm Joan Cathy. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of Tumwater. And this is the beginning of my 5th year on ORCAA, and I'm beginning my 14th year on council. So I've been around some of these issues, and all the ones that many of you know go with serving in an elected position. And I'm proud to be on this board because I think that the things that we discuss and that we do are not only, you know, federal, state regulation things, but we're doing things that make a difference in how people breathe and how people live on our planet. And that brings me great joy. So I enjoy working with the staff very much here at ORCAA. So welcome to all of you new folks. And we even laugh and tease one another in this meeting, and that's a good thing. And I think that Carolina must feel like all these things she's been assigned to, that Jim and I show up at each one of them. So thank you.
Yeah, in a normal time, we should all be just carpooling to all of these meetings. So, Greg.
Thanks, Jim. Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Commissioner. It's nice to meet you, Carolina, and good to see you again, or see you, Jill. I guess we serve on ORCAA together, so it's nice to know we're not the only ones that are assigning these committees alphabetically. But I really enjoy ORCAA and the access to the deep science is something that's really really satisfying to me. So I hope you guys enjoy the process. It's important work that you're doing here, and I'm glad to be in my 3rd year now.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, I think Randy's next.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. The new members, for those commissioners, Carolina and Jill, I'm in between both of you guys. Please feel free to give me a call if you have any questions, issues, or anything going on there. I'd love to work with you and look forward to the future there. As for Bill, I was lucky to have him on here. This is a great organization. One of the things you're both going to enjoy is it's a fiscally, I don't want to say conservative, I want to say a winner board. I really enjoy being on it. They don't sit there all the time and try to make more money to do more things that they don't do. This is very well thought out.
Randy, we're not getting enough of you to get the gist. The audio's not clear.
How about now?
That's better.
Okay, so yeah, just welcome to the board. Just know this is a great organization. I'm surprised when I came on, I was a little hesitant, but they really are smart with their money. They don't just do things just to do them. And everybody here is well educated on what they're doing. So you'll be happy to be on this board.
Thanks, Randy. Okay, I think, did I miss any board members? Okay, Fran, can you take us through the staff and yourself?
Well, first I'll start with our attorneys. We have 2 attorneys that are on today, Jeff Myers and Mike Throgmorton. Jeff, Mike, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Jeff Myers. We're with Law Lyman, Daniel Kemmerer and Bogdanovich, and we're going on 9 years of being general counsel to ORCAA, and have had the privilege of working with Carolina in her capacity as a judicial assistant. So, welcome.
I'm Mike Throgmorton. I'm also with Law Lyman, and happy to be here.
Oh, I'm Fran McNair, director for 12 years actually.
Fran, you're not either close enough to the mic or too muffled.
So can you hear me now?
That's a little better.
Okay. The mic is here. Okay, I'll just point that way. Okay. So I'm Fran McNair. I've been with ORCAA almost 12 years. I'm starting my 12th year in March. You guys hear me?
No, it's muffled.
It's muffled. I also have some feedback, maybe from Bill. Can you mute your phone?
Is that *4 or *6?
I don't know. Mine shows a mute button right on the screen.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, right.
That's a little better, yeah.
I don't know what the problem is. The mic is right there. Okay.
I think it might just be your mask in the distance,
okay,
Fran. That's a
speaking. Okay, because we're in the room together, but Debbie and I are far apart. Okay, so I've been with ORCAA almost 12 years. I'm starting my 12th year. This is a great organization. We've got fabulous staff. The board is, we really work with the board on policy issues. And even though our board, we have the largest region in the state, we're 8,000 square miles, 6 counties. But what's so great about our board is that they're diverse and they look at things across the county boundaries. And it's a fabulous board, and I hope you'll all enjoy it. From there, Debbie Moody.
Hi, Debbie Moody, office manager. I've been here for, it'll be 30 years in May.
Dan? You're muted, Dan. Dan, you're muted. Dan, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. I am Dan Nelson, Public Information Officer. I'm about 3+ weeks away from my 17th anniversary with ORCAA. So I think I'm one of the youngest serving members of the management team at ORCAA. We have a great history here, great organization. I've really appreciated it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Robert?
Robert Moody, Compliance Manager for Olympic Region Clean Air Agency. Been here for about 30 years as well. A lot of times I end up wearing the black hat. So when you have people in trouble, it's usually my fault. So it's a great place. So we enjoy what we do, and really appreciate Joan's comments about trying to, let people breathe, I guess. So thank you.
Mark? Mark, there you go.
Good morning, I'm Mark Gooden. I'm the engineer with ORCAA, and I'm responsible primarily for permitting and reviewing permit applications for new businesses and industries. And I enjoy working with ORCAA. I enjoy the variety of all the different things that we get to see in this region, from auto body spray shops to power plants. It's really widely varied. So happy to be here.
Odell?
I'm Odell Hadley. I'm the Senior Air Monitoring Specialist. So I'm responsible for monitoring our ambient air quality on the peninsula. And so I keep our air monitors running and operable, and I keep the program as modern and current and up to date as possible. And occasionally do extra research projects that are of interest to our region. So if something comes up or issues come up, I occasionally will do additional temporary or short-term projects to look at air quality issues.
And Lynn?
Good morning, all. Welcome, and a special welcome to all of our new commissioners. So pretty exciting to see some new faces. So I'm Lynn Harding. I'm the Administrative Services Manager, and I do a little bit of a lot of things with our grants, payroll, accounts payable, HR. I manage our building maintenance and operations as we own our office building, and liaison with the SAO for our annual audit or our semi-annual audits with the state auditors, annual budgets, a little bit of everything, nice variety. So welcome all, and look forward to working with you.
And Nick Graham, I don't know, are you on, Nick? He's our IT guy. He's also a monitoring specialist. He set all this up. He's the brains behind all of this IT. So
I'm here.
Are you there, Nick?
Yep. Hi guys, I'll be the voice behind the scenes for a lot of this. I'm Nick Grant, the IT guy, and the actual youngest member of the management team. I've been here 5 years, and it's been a pleasure the whole time. If you don't see me on these Zoom calls, eventually when we get together in person, you will see me in the office, and look forward to working with y'all.
So those are our managers. We have a total staff of 16 people. mostly, to basically divide between engineering and compliance. And then we've got a front office person, but we're a pretty small agency to cover 6 counties and 8,000 square miles. So I really, we've got fabulous staff that are really dedicated to what they do. And I appreciate everybody's excellence there and their willingness to work and to really go to the mat for air quality for our region. So Jim, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Fran. Yeah, I can't say enough about this team. It's really probably one of the better teams of public servants that you'll have an opportunity to work with. So I look forward to everybody getting to know each other and seeing where we go as a new group. I got to say though, Dan, you might need to roll some stuff down the hill to Nick. Okay, so is everyone okay with the agenda? Does anyone have any changes or would like to suggest a modification to the agenda? Otherwise, we'll go with consensus. Okay, we have an agenda. That takes us to the chair's report, and I'll just say that we did not have the finance committee meeting this morning because of the power outage, and so we'll work to catch that up and bring you the financial reports, and I'm sure Lynn will let us know during her report a little later in the meeting where we are anyway. So with that, we'll go to public comment. I don't see anyone on the line. Anything, Fran, from your end? No? Okay, so public comment. And then we'll move to the consent agenda. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
That's great.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, or polls?
Is it possible for me to abstain from this since there are minutes from before I was elected?
Yes, it's fine if you want to abstain. I'll make sure I ask for that. But you're more than allowed to vote on minutes as a board member, even if you weren't here. So,
thank you.
great. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay,
Aye.
great. Motion carries with 1 abstention. Thank you. Oh, that was my own voice back at me. Okay. Okay, so that takes us to new business, which is the Title V Air Operating Permit funding discussion. And so I'm just going to tee this up a little bit to let you know when the Finance Committee was talking about the financial report late last year, we just had a lot of questions around how the reserves work and how this program functions sort of on the books at the organization. And so Fran and the team are going to give us a little more in-depth overview and maybe ask us a couple of questions. But I'm going to turn it. I'm not sure, Fran, am I going to you or?
Mark.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mark to tell us the story.
Okay, let me know if you need more volume on my
solid
microphone. And I am going to share my screen. It's the first time I've done this, so bear with me. Can you all see a slide of a presentation? Okay. So Fran asked me to give a presentation on our Title V program here at ORCAA. And she wanted me to focus in on the financial aspects of that program, but I'm going back right to the foundations of the program just because we have so many new board members, and also because it's a good refresher for standing board members who've been on the board for a while, just to remind them how this fits in with everything else. Okay, so we're talking about Title V of the Federal Clean Air Act, and this is a program that we implement, and just to get off the ground here, Title V is a federal program that's handed down from the Federal Clean Air Act. It's also known as the Air Operating Permit Program, It's also known as the Major Source Program. It's also known as the Part 70 program, okay? And I'm just letting you know this. If I ever use an acronym or any of these phrases and you don't know what I'm talking about, let me know. But I really try to be as talking in plain language as much as possible. But I'm going to refer to this program as the Title V program, and that's the how EPA generally refers to it as. It's a delegated program. ORCAA received delegation from EPA in 1993. We had to submit a big delegation request, and we actually got in the Code of Federal Regulations. There's a particular Code of Federal Regulations that documents that the program has been delegated to ORCAA. It's a program that is specifically for the very, very large industrial sources of air pollution that we refer to as major sources. And currently in ORCAA's jurisdiction, we have 10 of these major sources that are subject to this program. And then we also work as the contractor for the Energy Facility Site Environmental Council for the Grays Harbor Energy Center. The Grays Harbor Energy Center is also a major source. So effectively, we handle the workload for 11 major sources of air pollution throughout our jurisdiction, okay? So this is a program, this Title V program is exclusively for these major sources. And just roughly, a major source is any industrial facility that can emit greater than 100 tons per year of any criteria, what we refer to as a criteria air pollutant. So like oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, things like that, particulate matter, or 10 tons per year or more of any hazardous air pollutant. Okay, I think the important thing here is just to differentiate that this is a program for the major sources, and the major sources are big. We have 11 of them, and that's in a pool of 800 or so minor sources that we also regulate. Okay, so what are the requirements of the Title V program? The Title V program, also referred to as the Air Operating Permit Program, the big thing here is the biggest requirement is that it requires these major sources to operate under an operating permit. And the operating permit needs to be renewed every 5 years. This is in addition to them getting upfront approval prior to construction through their new source review or notice of construction permit. This is something that needs to be, the air operating permit needs to be renewed every 5 years. In addition, part of the program is that continuous compliance needs to be assured, needs to be monitored and assured. And so ORCAA is responsible for making sure that that happens, that the correct monitoring is happening and that these major sources are assuring compliance. This requires what we refer to as a full compliance evaluation or an inspection at least every 2 years. ORCAA's schedule is we try to get out to these facilities every year. And sometimes it happens more than that because there might be a stack test or there might be complaints or something else. So in general, we try to get out to these facilities and inspect them every year. The inspections are in depth and they last sometimes more than a day. Title V also involves annual compliance certifications and reporting to EPA, and Title V requires annual fees, and that's the subject of the focus of my presentation. All 10 of the major sources in ORCAA's jurisdiction are operating under an effective air operating permit currently. And The 11th facility, the Grays Harbor Energy Center, is operating under an effective air operating permit that we wrote, ORCAA wrote, but is administered by the Energy Facility Siting Environmental Council. So now to hone in on the fees. Being that this is a delegated program, all the specificity on fees is in the Code of Federal Regulations. But just to let you know, the state has their operating permit regulation. And if you want to write this down, it's under Washington Administrative Code 173-401. And it has very limited specificity in there regarding fees. The specificity, it comes mainly from Part 70 of the Code of Federal Regulations, and we're going to hone in on that. But just to stick with my presentation here, the basic requirements in plain talk here from Part 70 are that the annual fees that the agency charges to these major sources are sufficient to cover program costs. The second requirement is that the fees will be used solely for this Title V program, so we can't take money, we've got to account for our money specifically in this program. The third requirement is the fees at least need to be greater than what EPA refers to as the presumptive minimum fee. And that's currently the presumptive minimum is $52.79 per ton of emissions. Just to give you an idea of where we're at, we more than meet this. If you take a look at all of our facilities in aggregate, we're at $395 per ton. And let me just clarify here that EPA views this presumptive minimum is the bottom line. You at least need to collect this amount. And if you are collecting this amount, then EPA is not going to scrutinize all the details of your program for Title V. But they are concerned that fees are sufficient to cover the program, okay? And the fourth requirement from Part 70 is that you actually have a condition in their air operating permit for these major sources that requires these annual fees. And there's specific language in Part 70 that says that, hey, if the fees aren't paid annually, then that actually constitutes a violation. Okay. Moving along, the fee eligible activities per Part 70, they specifically, you could read these bullets over, spell out that the fees can cover rulemaking associated with Title V sources, permit writing and issuance, and I think the lion's share of our workload goes into permit writing and issuance, administrative costs, and the administrative costs include both the direct and indirect. So to just clarify, that means that a portion of ORCAA's electricity and other indirect costs are fee eligible under Title V. And we keep track of all that on an FTE basis, full-time equivalent basis, and I'll explain that later on. But just moving along here, inspections and enforcement activities are fee eligible. Ambient monitoring is fee eligible, so a small portion of Odell's and Nick's work funnels into this program. Modeling analysis and demonstrations are fee eligible. Emission inventories are fee eligible. So Jennifer DeMay's work on compiling our annual emissions inventory for the entire region, a portion of that funnels into this program. And then lastly, a Title V small business assistance program, which is actually quite limited. So how does ORCAA meet all those criteria and come up with a fee? So we determine the Title V fees in concert with ORCAA's annual budget process. And we do it's workload driven, so we rely heavily on our timesheets. And I could go into any kind of depth based on your question on that. But essentially what we do is we take a look at what it costs to implement the program the previous or the current fiscal year, and we use that as a stepping stone for projecting what it will cost the upcoming fiscal year. So essentially, we are balancing our checkbook, so to speak, for Title V every year in concert with ORCAA's annual budget process. Now, under item 2 on the slide here, the total program costs projected, and this is Title V, plus the ending fund balance in the program, exclusively Title V, equals the total program fees for the upcoming fiscal year. Okay, so some years we have money left over in the program, and that goes to reduce the fees for the forthcoming fiscal year. Other years we are at a deficit, and so we have to play catch-up ball, and that's all done on a year-by-year basis. We project, item 3 here, we project our costs based on taking a look at what the renewals that we need to, the air operating permit renewals we need to make, and the number of inspections we need to do, and we anticipate our workload, and we project it, and that's what goes into our fees. But the checkbook, so to speak, is balanced every year. The entire process is timesheet driven, so you could see, and I could show you an example if there's a question on this, where we base all the numbers for saying, hey, how much did we spend this year on Title V? It's all based on timesheets. And then lastly, item 6 here on the slide, we take the total fees that we need, and we then distribute them amongst all of our Title V sources based on the complexity of the source. And we determine complexity of the source based on how much they're emitting and the number of emission units they have at the facility. And I could show you an example of that if needed. Now, getting back to this checkbook, annual checkbook idea, which is our system here, and I think this might be the subject of some of the questions from the Financial Committee. But if you take a look from 2005 to 2021, 2021 is our current fiscal year, right? So I've got it from 2005 to 2021, but 2021 now, being that we're 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, this is somewhat of a projection on this last bar. But if you take a look at our ending fund balances for these fiscal years, you could see that it waxes and wanes, okay? And it waxes and wanes because we're a small agency with 11 sources. We, like for example, if we have an enforcement issue like we just got through with Sierra Pacific Industries recently, that has huge implications on these numbers, because that's Title V fee eligible activities. And so that'll be reflected in our budget. So being that we're a small agency, we don't have a lot of buffer room, and events can skew this. Okay, now you could see this as a problem, or you could see this as a solution, because our solution to knowing that our costs waxes and wanes like this is that we balance the checkbook every year. And so you could see here in 2005, 2006, we had ending fund balances, and that just went into to reduce the fees for the following fiscal years. But then there was a period, 2007 through 2010, where we were negative, and then a big period where we were positive. So you could see it fluctuates quite a bit. And the last slide here, I just took a couple of the more recent fiscal years, and you could see the amount of revenue we're pulling in for Title V, and our expenses and our ending fund balances, the values there. Okay, so I think with that, I'll just leave it open to questions, except that you know, I think that the big points here are, this is a program for just our very big sources, and the other big point is that it's our budget process for the Title V is timesheet driven, and it's the process is balancing the checkbook, so to speak, on an annual basis. And with that, I think I'll close my presentation and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Mark. Questions? Somebody's pumping out some feedback. Any questions on this? Oh,
yeah, that could be me. This is Bill. You know, I've got 3 degrees. One's an MBA, so I'm very comfortable with financial analysis. Can you tell me what the reserves are for our organization and how that compares to an annual operating expense?
Yes. Okay, so first, let me say that I'm just talking about one program. So you have reserves specifically for the Title V program, and they are determined on an annual basis. And I think, and I don't have them committed to memory. Maybe Lynn's got them, but my recollection is like about 10 to 20%. After we do this workload analysis, we include 10 to 20% of whatever it is that we are projecting to be our cost for the forthcoming fiscal year. We up it by 10 to 20% as a means to have a reserve. But that should not be construed with the agency reserve.
The reason I ask is that if our organization decides, you know, we really do believe this is the action we should take, and it causes us to go a bit negative on cash flow for a year, is it the case that we can appeal to the state legislature for supplemental funding, or draw on reserves, or maybe a line of credit? Is there a way to fund?
Yeah, Bill. Bill, I can answer that question, and then when Lynn gives her report, she'll talk a little bit more about this. But the total cash balance for the organization at the end of the last fiscal year was 1.6 million. When we account for our contingency funds, including the Title V reserve, our ending fund balance, it will be about 912,000. That is with an expenditure of 257 out of that reserve this year. I'll tell you that in my 10 years on the board, we've had a reserve expenditure, I think all of them in the budget, and we maybe actually drew down from it one time. And so we sit pretty well cash wise. And the finance committee just really wanted to understand more about how this Title V reserve worked. So, but it sounds like you might be a great finance committee appointee.
Well, that's what they did to me at Clallam Transit, and I'm quite happy to help. Thanks very much for your answer.
So Jim, just to follow up on that, specifically for the Title V program, and I just pulled up one of the sheets in the workload analysis, and you know, Lynn can confirm this, or maybe Fran too, but it looks like we had a contingency in for let's see, in 6/30/2020 for this Title V program of 20,000, and then for 2021, 30,000. So that's what we decided for specifically this program in fiscal year 2020 and 2021.
Mark, that's not exactly right. I mean, 2021 is we for fiscal year 2021 we estimated 20,000. That may be not enough, and we've estimated. We haven't done 2022 yet. We'll be doing 2022 coming up. So we'll be looking at what we think we need for a contingency. Number one, the contingency discussion will be how did our expenditures, revenue and expenditures for Title V, how do they look when we start developing the budget, which will be in the next quarter. So we passed the budget for new folks. Most jurisdictions, all the jurisdictions, go on a calendar year. We're on a state fiscal year. So our budget year is July 1 to June 30th. So we start as a staff, we start pulling together our budget in February, March. Mark will be doing a calculation based upon what we think we will be using in the next fiscal year, which will be fiscal year 2022. And one of the things that was difficult about figuring out this year, fiscal year 2021, was we had the pandemic. We had an AOP audit, which, again, was charged to this account. It was costly, and we had a backlog. So all of our air operating permits are, they are 5-year permits, but they can apply for what's called a permit shield. So they put in their application, but because of our workload and our small staff, we don't always get to them exactly at 5 years, which is not bad. But EPA, when they did our audit, was very pleased that we were spending time this year getting caught up on that backlog. I think we had 4 that were in backlog. So our expenditures for this fiscal year, the one we're in, fiscal year 2021, is higher than what we anticipated. So as we're going into 2022, we'll be looking at what our actual expenditures were for this year and our projected expenditures for next year. And that's how we'll develop the budget, so that we, number one, so that we are charging the sources our actual costs and can make sure that we actually do have a Title V reserve in the budget that is actual Title V dollars starting into fiscal year 2022, if that makes sense. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and this is really clarifying for me. I think seeing the bigger numbers next to the contingency is helpful, because I think in the finance committee, we were thinking that contingency should be big enough to carry the operating budget versus it being the residual funds from remaining years that are within the context of this program. And this is really helpful. So are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. So I know staff are working to figure out what that how to keep that contingency from looking quite as volatile, and we'll just see that in the next budget process.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on this topic? It's a good introduction for some of our new members. So make sure you ask your questions in your orientation if you have them. I know some people need more time to process before they ask questions. Okay, thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. And we're going to go now to the compliance report from Robert.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Robert Moody, Compliance Manager And I think if you look at, this is mostly for the new members, but for the rest of you, maybe it'll be a reminder. I thought I would go through the paperwork that's included in your packets under B5, Compliance Program Update. And if you pull up that tab, you will see there on page 1, we talk about inspections. And these are reports that come out of the database. So some of them are a little bit cryptic. So I thought I would try to explain what it is you're looking at. So there on the inspections completed list, you'll see that it says INSP, abbreviation for the inspector that's actually dealing with that source. So you'll see they got some inspections done, even despite rain and COVID. We have moved forward on some of those that are outdoors, trying to get those caught up and kept up to date. So the inspector's initials are first, followed by the date we were there. And then we use the term source in a lot of air pollution work. And in simple terms, it's the business, or it may be a private individual, whoever's making the pollution. That's who we're talking about there. The far right columns may also be of interest to you. They are, did the company receive a written warning or a notice of violation, NOV? In this example, you can see Gailey's Grocery in Raymond did receive a written warning. It's a good thing that as you look down that list, you'll see there's one checkbox out of all that list that's there. And basically it shows that we generally have a pretty good rapport, working relationship with our sources in our jurisdiction. So that's a good thing, positive. And while you're browsing through that stuff, there's a lot to look at here. So if you have questions anytime through, just let me know. I probably don't have answers, but we'll try. Page 2 there is the asbestos notifications. So these are the ones we have received since the last board meeting. So roughly a month at a time is what you see here. There are still other active ones out there, but these are the ones that are going right now. They can range from a simple day project, pulling up somebody's kitchen linoleum that got wet, or some of these projects are literally year long or more. Permits are good for 1 year in this case. Page 4 is the demolition notifications. Just like the asbestos report, these are the active demolitions we're aware of that they've filed for. These cases also may be simple one-day jobs or 12-month projects. So anywhere in between is fair game. Skipping into page 6, land clearing burns permits. These are the ones that have been issued by ORCAA. We do have agreements with multiple fire districts throughout our jurisdiction that issue their own land clearing burn permits. So the residents there do not, they go to the fire district rather than to ORCAA. As an aside, we do not do the forestry practice type activities. So if forest lands are controlled and permitted through Department of Natural Resources. So that is not an ORCAA activity, just to be clear there. Page 7, complaints. They are sorted by county so that it's easier for you folks to review what happened in your neighborhood. Again, the term source is used to identify who the alleged polluter is, whether it's a business or an individual. Also a common thing that happens here, our use of the word city does not imply city limits. It is the post office address that shows up. So in Joan's case, even if it says Tumwater, it may be outside the city of Tumwater. So just as clarification. And For those of you that are curious, the most common complaint we receive is outdoor burning. All told, we get approximately 600 complaints a year. And then on page 9, the end of that report is the NOV, or Notice of Violation report. And those are the companies and individuals that have received enforcement actions by ORCAA. Some of them are resolved promptly, others take some time. At times, our attorneys are also involved in some of those cases. And yeah, as time moves on, some get added and some get taken away. So the list isn't stagnant, but it does change a little bit over time. On a practical basis, there's 4 field inspectors plus myself. And as Fran had mentioned earlier, we cover 8,000 square miles. So we're spread a little thin at times. And, we try to keep a presence in all the counties, which I think we do adequately, but it is an interesting work. So, all that said, do we have any questions of this information? Seeing or hearing none. I do have one other thing with the board's permission. Can I give you a 30-year history of ORCAA if I do it in under 2 minutes?
If you can do that, we should record it. Oh, wait, it's being recorded.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is very specific to a topic that is Thurston County centric, but let's talk about the Thurston County Maintenance Plan. So what is a maintenance plan? It's EPA's name for a roadmap that says how we get from poor air quality to good air quality. And where this started was in the late 1980s. The smoke was really bad in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. It was so bad, we were put on EPA's naughty list for poor air quality. Okay, what do we do now? Well, to clean it up, the primary emphasis was on wood stove usage. We got grants to replace them. Dan's still doing some of that today even. Poor air quality days, we restricted their use. We mandated dry fuels. And new technology was helping to design lower emitting wood stoves. So guess what? Air quality improved. In 1995, EPA provided funding to get off the naughty list. To do that, we prepared what they call a maintenance plan, that roadmap. With assistance of a consulting firm, several laboratories, ecology, EPA, and a whole bunch of individuals contributed to that. The conclusion of the maintenance plan was, yes, Thurston County could continue to meet air quality regulations through 2010. Yay. Well, federal rules being what they are, as we approach 2010, they say, okay, now show us you can protect the air quality through 2020. Well, I'm glad to say we have arrived in 2020 and we have met those requirements. I will be filing with the final annual report with Ecology and EPA later this month. So our maintenance plans have fulfilled their mission and can be retired. And my personal history is it was an honor to shepherd this project from start to finish, actually. So that's my 2-minute history lesson for you. Thank you.
Wow, Robert, that's a huge achievement.
I thought so.
Especially from a paperwork standpoint.
Well, there's a lot of field work that went into making that happen. So, right. And I understand Odell has some more to add to all this stuff with her work as well. So any questions of me?
Thank you, Robert. So I would just ask, Fran and Robert, when you do the orientation of the new members, kind of catch them up on the last 10 years of that outdoor burning conversation in Thurston County and, the permit overlay we put in place and the discussion about soon charging for those permits. and then someday eliminating outdoor burning in Thurston County because of our health numbers related to asthma and the size compared to the size of our county.
We have on the agenda for February to be talking about outdoor burning, bringing up some of those particular issues. But yeah, hopefully we'll have I'm going to try to do a Zoom meeting with all 3 new board members so that, you can sort of bounce ideas and questions off one another. And we'll be trying to set that up in the very near future. So we'll have that before the February board meeting. So you'll have a background before that meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. That will take us to Mark for the engineering report.
Okay, I believe it's tab 6 from your board materials that Debbie sent. I'm going to cover real briefly the pending industrial and commercial air permits. These are construction permits and air operating permits. So they either they're necessary before construction permits necessary before a facility can actually establish or construct a new air pollution source. And I talked about air operating permits. Those are the permits that are required for our very, very big sources. So you'll see this summary sheet here. It's going to list the construction permits and air operating permits all in one sheet. These are the cases that are in the permit pipeline, so to speak. You can see the facility name, the general location via the city in that column, and then the type of permit. NOC refers to notice of construction. This is the permit that's required prior to establishing a new source. And Robert explained what that term means. It means anything that is stationary and emits air pollution and is regulated. So these notices of construction are required for anything from a new gas station on up to a power plant. Just to rattle off a few of the sources that we regulate: asphalt plants, rock crushers, printing presses, emergency engines, dry kilns, anything that moves material via air pneumatically. So a lot of these lumber mills that you see have cyclones and bag houses. Those are also subject to these notices of construction. Boilers, of course, gas turbines. So we have to deal with them all. They require a notice of construction permit. The other acronym you're going to see there in column 3 is ADM. That's an administrative permit action. And then scrolling on down the first page there, you see AOP crops up. That's air operating permit. In this particular case here on page 1, this is Crown Cork and Seal, located right here in on the border between Olympia and Lacey. And you never know that they were sitting there. It's a big facility that emits well over 100 tons. They're right by Home Depot. Sometimes you can see stuff coming out of their stack, but you never know that they're emitting that magnitude of air emissions. Well, they manufacture cans, aluminum cans. A very interesting facility, and they do a great job controlling their emissions. Otherwise, there'd be plenty of odor complaints. They use lacquers, inside spray lacquers, and inks and such. So they're a major source, and they're subject to this renewable air operating permit. So this entry here in this summary is for renewal of their air operating permit, which is in progress. So out of this list, if you see any facilities that show up in your area, I could get you details after the board meeting, or you can send an email to Fran and say, hey, I'd like to know a little bit more about Silver Springs Organics or McKinley Paper or whatever. Get you all the details you want. But the one that I would like to highlight today actually is Sierra Pacific Industries. And I don't know if we have a board meeting in February, but I just stamped and signed that permit this morning, and Fran will be signing it, and then it'll be final. It could be mailed out. Debbie will get it mailed out. And, or actually, I think they're so eager to get this permit, they're coming into the office to pick it up. That might be the case. Anyways, this is a fairly big case that I just want to mention. It's done. It's done now. And it took a lot of compliance enforcement time. And so I just like to highlight that one. It shows up, let's see, right there on page 2 in the middle, Sierra Pacific Industries, Aberdeen. They installed 8 lumber dry kilns. They did it without our approval. And so they got themselves kind of in a little bit of hot water. We've resolved all that, and we just approved their permit. So they're good to go. Fran might have something more to say on that. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. And again, if you have any questions, you could funnel those through to me through Fran or call me directly, and we'll get you all the details you need.
Questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, sir. So we're going to go to the air quality program update with our own Dr. Odell Hadley.
Hey everyone, I'm going to share my screen with you, so hopefully that will work. And you can see that. Okay, thank you, Robert. All right, so for the January meeting, I usually give the usual air quality summary from the last month or the previous month, which is December, and then I'll also do a little bit on the full year of 2020 and what that looked like for air quality. It was a very fun and interesting year as far as air quality goes. I use those terms extremely loosely. There we go. So for the December 2020 air quality summary, looks pretty typical for a winter, actually pretty good. We didn't have any air quality days that were worse than moderate. So for those of you who are new and not used to this, this graph, I'll just go through it. The numbers represent the PM 2.5 micrograms per meter cubed. The minimum number in the left-hand column, the average for the month, and the maximum daily average that we recorded that month. So the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for a 24-hour PM 2.5 is 35 micrograms per meter cubed. So you can see that even on our maximum days at all of our 7 sites, we didn't come anywhere close to that. So that's good news. And so over here on the right side, you'll see 5 colored columns. So, and this represents the number of days in the month that we had good air quality, moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, or very unhealthy. And you can see we had a couple of moderate days in Lacey, Port Angeles, Shelton, and Raymond had one, but good at all of our other sites. A lot of these differences, and you'll see it's mostly the same, but a lot of the differences have as much to do with the topography and the weather as it does with the actual emissions. So I can get more into that when that becomes relevant, maybe at another meeting. But yeah, if we have periods of stagnation, then more pollutants can build up and we'll see higher concentrations. And Port Angeles happens to be one of those spots that just sits in that location at the base of the Olympic Mountains, and we often see kind of almost a hole of stagnation sitting over Port Angeles, whereas Port Townsend, not far from there, is sitting there on the strait, and it actually gets really good wind flow. And so we'll see generally Port Townsend will have lower PM 2.5 than Port Angeles. Not because they're emitting less, or maybe they are, but also because of weather. So I'm going to go to the annual summary, which is going to look just like this slide, but for the full year of 2020. So here I've added a little bit more information. Next to each site, you will see a percentage, and that's the percent of valid data that we collected this year in 2020. I thought it was important because I was worried we would lose data with the COVID, and we had restrictions getting into sites, and we weren't able to always get there to fix analyzers in time. So I'm pretty happy with our percent valid data as it shows up. It's actually one of our better years. So not sure what to say about that, but pretty good. So you can see that over here on this maximum, remember I said the National Ambient Air Quality Standard was 35, and you'll see some really high numbers. You'll also see another category here with its hazardous levels. So this represents our 10 to 11 day wildfire smoke incident that we had last summer in September. And so you can see at all of our sites, including Chesapeake, which is our remote background site and typically very, very clean, we had 4 days of hazardous air quality, 1 day of very unhealthy, 2 days of unhealthy, and then some unhealthy for sensitive group and moderate. But you can see that the highest numbers are actually in this hazardous value. And I'm sure you all remember that. And you can sympathize, or you remember that. Anyway, I just want to point out down here, there's a secondary air quality standard. That's the annual average, and that's 12 micrograms per meter cube for PM 2.5. And I just want to point out that even with these days of very unhealthy and hazardous air that was really bad, we still did not come close at any of our sites to seeing this annual average of 12 micrograms per meter cube. So that is good news. So this,
Odell, is that the thing that will keep Robert from having to work another 30 years?
Yes, that is the thing. Well, so now with the wildfire smoke, that's not something we have control over. And a lot of times the state Department of Ecology will issue a exceptional event. And so that when they do that, if they say this was an exceptional event, they can apply to EPA to have those data removed from the design value calculation, so that when they're determining whether a site needs to be evaluated for air quality standards or not, they may not take that into account. And so here's an example of that.
That process,
so,
that's going to happen.
Huh?
The exceptional, the state is applying to exceptional.
I would imagine they would. I can't imagine they wouldn't. So Washington State has an air quality goal of, and this is a little bit complicated, but bear with me, 98% of the days with PM 2.5 less than 20.4 micrograms per meter cube. So that means that that if 2% of the days of the year exceed this value, we're still meeting our air quality goals. So when I look at that data for all of our sites, I can calculate that for with the wildfires and without. And so the 98th percentile with wildfires is shown here with a red X, meaning when we use the wildfire data, we did not meet the state air quality goal at any site in our region. But if I disregard that wildfire data, we did. And we met it quite comfortably in 2020. And you can compare that to 2019, and actually the numbers look pretty similar. We don't see a big change at any of our sites. You'll notice that there's a hashtag for South Bend Raymond in 2019. That was we were moving the site from South Bend to Raymond, and we lost quite a bit of data during that year. And so those data aren't comparable and shouldn't be grouped together because it's two different sites. So, so yeah, when we don't have wildfires happening, we're actually meeting our air quality goals at all of our site and doing a good job with that. So the last thing I want to show, this is just for Lacey. I didn't put the other sites on because it just makes the plot messy, but you kind of get the idea. So on the y-axis here, this is the number of days where we saw unhealthy for sensitive groups or worse. Basically, we were not meeting that air quality goal. And so the blue line is the number of days in the winter that happened, and the red line is the number of days in the summer that happened, and the gray line is both added together for the whole year. And the main point here I want to bring out, so Robert talked about how wood stoves was the primary target of meeting those goals and getting our air quality better. And so when you go back here to 2008 and 2009, and actually if you went back into the 90s and the 80s, these values would be much, much higher. So at some point I'm going to have the time to find that data and add that to the plot just for interest's sake. But here you can see that the winter time, we would see 20, 28, 18. So regularly over 15 days in the winter where we were higher than the unhealthy for sensitive groups. Some years we had warmer, wetter winters or windier. We didn't see that. But what I want to point out here is this reversal trend here that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, where our air quality in the winter has really improved. We're down, below 6 days at unhealthy for sensitive groups. And in the last 3 years, it's just been a decline, steady decline. But these summertime numbers are starting to make up for it. And so we're seeing these in 2017, 2018, and 2020, where we were at 10 or higher days that were worse than unhealthy for sensitive groups. And as you saw in the previous plot in 2020, it wasn't just unhealthy for sensitive groups, it was downright hazardous for several of those days. So that is a bit concerning for these trends to see that switch. So saturation studies going forward, for those of you that know, we tried—
Odell, sorry, Greg had a question.
Yep, sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Just while you're on that slide there, Odell, I was curious, I mean, are you asserting a direct causal link between ORCAA's wood stove, wood heat bounty and that downward trend in the winter?
I mean, I would like to say that. It's really hard for the data to bear that out. I would need to look more carefully at weather patterns as well. I mean, if the winters are warmer and windier, then that would also help alleviate that problem.
We're 100% responsible for the reduction.
I didn't ask Dan, notice, so yeah.
Great communications answer, though.
Where that, anytime I make a statement like that, I feel very like the data show that might be, and I don't want to say that for sure, but Dan is more comfortable making that statement. So we'll go with that.
Just to note, Odell is a PhD. I'm a media flack.
So you'll see, we're a good team. Any other questions on that slide? Okay. So saturation studies, as several of you know, that we have done studies in Clallam County, Jefferson County, Thurston County, and Mason County, where we installed extra air quality sensors around the county and compared them to our permanent location to evaluate how representative our air monitors are of a wider region, and to evaluate if maybe there's a better location or a more representative location to put those air monitors. In the last couple of years, air quality sensors have become much lower cost and available to the public. And EPA, ORCAA, the state of Washington, Oregon, California, lots of different agencies have been evaluating sensors to see how their data are and how to use them. And one of the more popular sensors is the purple air sensor. And they have this map that you can go to that shows all of the people, all of the public members who have purchased their own sensor and installed it. And they've made that data available for download. So we have now moved away from installing our own sensors for the saturation studies and actually just using the ones that the public has installed. And it's more sensors. It's sort of a symbiotic relationship between us and the public. And we can use those data to sort of provide ourselves a continuous evaluation in all of our counties, rather than rotating through from one county to the other. We can keep that data and evaluate when we feel there's a need to evaluate our sensor. And one of the silver linings, I think, of our wildfire smoke episode last summer is that after that episode, I saw a huge jump in the number of these purple air sensors that popped up on the map. So after the wildfires here, I'm showing a picture of Olympia, and there was an addition of 8 sensors in the community. This is our sensor that I have co-located with our permanent monitor so that I can compare the 2 data from the 2 different monitors and make sure that they are recording something that's comparable and similar. And then Dan has one installed at his house as well, where we're evaluating a different sensor from a different company. So we'd like to be able to do this and provide guidance to the public as these sensors become more popular and more people in the public install them. Not all the data is equal. Sometimes the data aren't comparable, and we want to be able to provide guidance to the public on how to interpret these data and how to use these data. So, so Dan kindly offered to install one of our purple air sensors at his house, along with a sensor he bought for personal use, so we can evaluate that. And then over here, because I didn't want to make this slide too messy, but Jefferson County has seen an additional 4 for a total of 6 sensors across the county. Clallam County has 4, 1 in Port Angeles and 3 in Sequim. Mason County didn't have any sensors other than ours before the smoke event, and now they've got 4. Grace Harbor has a total of 3, and Pacific County has 1. And so one of the things that we will do is, because the cost of the sensors is so low, we can buy some additional sensors and supplement in counties where we don't see a large number of the public with them, and we can install them in areas that we think we want to evaluate. And then as the public installs more, we can use and keep those sensors at the office, and maybe, you know, lend them out for special projects or public members in the future, or classes. Dan can talk more about that too for public information. So last slide, other monitoring news. I finished and submitted the final documents today for our community toxics grant. So that is a big, big ticket item off my plate. I've got 1 submitted paper that's currently under review, so I will have to respond to peer review comments, but hopefully we'll get that published in the next couple of months. As Dan mentioned last time, we submitted a new grant to EPA because I'm a sucker for punishment. I'm not sure why we did this, but if we get it, that will be great, but it will be a lot of work. And that grant is to evaluate current strategies used to reduce wildfire smoke exposure. And we managed to keep mostly current on our quarterly site visits, thanks to Nick and myself sometimes. And I continued to keep Chica functional, even with restricted access to the reservation. So that was a concern I had earlier this year, but turned out to work pretty well. And then also this year, I've been serving as the technical chair for the Northwest AirQuest Consortium, which is a group of researchers and policy and government agencies. It's EPA, Ecology, Washington State University, University of Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. And it's for air quality modeling and regional air quality concerns. So we meet and we present research and projects and updates on the models and all sorts of sciencey type topics that we're interested when it comes to air quality. So I will continue serving as the technical chair until the June meeting in 2021, and we will pass that chair position on to Oregon. So DEQ Oregon will take over in June. So that is all I have.
Thank you, Odell. Question?
Odell, this is Bill Peach.
Hi.
I serve as the vice chair on the Board of Natural Resources. We establish policy for the Department of Natural Resources. And there's proposed legislation dealing with fire management. I hope it is successful. I'm very interested in the information that you have with regard to the impact of forest fires on air quality. And just a heads up, if I can assist as a liaison to the Department of Natural Resources, I'm happy to. But I would enjoy, crazy for people that don't like analysis, looking at the data and correlating some of the changed air quality on fires that are here in Washington State versus those coming from Canada. Just a comment to you that maybe we can follow up with later on.
Sure.
But if you've got that data, I would really enjoy.
I have not separated out the Washington State fires from California, Oregon, and British Columbia, but I do have modeling tools that would enable me to do that to some extent. So yeah, if you, we can chat later, but if you let me know specifically what it is, if I know the question that you're asking or what you want to answer, it will help me a lot in streamlining that analysis to figure out how to get at that answer. So if you're specific to say wanting to know how do the Washington fires contribute to the air quality versus out-of-state fires, I probably work a little bit with the Department of Ecology to get that, just to make sure I'm not reinventing the wheel, because there's a few people over there that may be working on that already. So if that's kind of your question, I'll put some feelers out and see what work has already been done on that specifically. And if you have additional questions, let me know.
Bill?
No, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Bill, if I could comment, I read the legislation that's been put forward on the setting up the new account for dealing with wildfire, and you know, it did mention concerns about air quality and greenhouse gases. We're really, one of the things that's been difficult, and I worked for DNR for 8 years under the aquatics, so I know how DNR functions. But one of the things that's kind of frustrating to us is that it talks about coordination, and there's no role for any of the local air agencies in that when they're talking about the impacts of, and I understand what you're trying to do is forest health and mitigate wildfire. It would be really helpful to have a voice in there for looking at air quality. And the other piece that we've been working on somewhat successfully, but it's been frustrating with DNR, is legislation was passed a couple of years ago to allow burning in the urban growth areas. And so, as you know, urban growth areas will ultimately become part of local jurisdictions because that's the concept under the comprehensive plan. And the concern has been that burning in the urban growth areas for silvicultural purposes and to mitigate wildfire, I suppose too, can, you know, obviously it has potentially can have an impact on air quality. And we've been trying to work with DNR to have a role because we don't want to impact air quality. We want to make sure that if it's done, it's done in the right conditions. And it's coming along, but it's frustrating. So those are two areas where we've tried to have some impact. It's difficult, and I just need to say that. So I'm really pleased that you're on the Forest Practices Board, or you're on representing.
Yes.
Is that
no,
correct?
I'm on the Board of Natural Resources. There are 6 members: the governor, the commissioner of public lands, superintendent of public schools, 2 deans, and 1 county commissioner. And I have regular contact with the commissioner of public lands. Totally support the notion of providing for a long-term fix on this fire management issue.
Right.
So maybe later on, if we could talk, I'd like to be able to, as I lobby, it's biennium $120 million funding. And, I'd like to be able to share with some of the legislators. Here's another dimension to this that you haven't really seen a lot of data on.
That would be
and that, you know, yeah, that dimension is our ability to contribute locally to air quality through what's being proposed is just an allocation of funds, not just in DNR, but locally to fire departments, et cetera. So I'm very much in favor. Sorry about lobbying to the rest of the board members, and I apologize for occupying the meeting.
Oh, that's a good connection to have, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to be a part of those conversations too, Fran, if the timing works out. Okay, anything else for Odell? Okay, wonderful. So that will take us to Dan with the education and outreach update.
Well, again, this is Dan Nelson. I'm the Public Information Officer, and I'm going to try the impossible of being both concise and comprehensive. Historically, the PIO would be a media liaison person. In the 21st century, I like to consider myself the agency's utility infielder. I cover a little bit of everything. I work closely with all of our departments. You'll see in your board packet, I think the last pages are a new publication we sent out, which covers the types of outdoor burning we regulate and work with. There's 5 types. And I created this in-house with the support and feedback from the compliance department, Robert's team. So our 5 outdoor burning types are recreational fires, campfires, residential outdoor burning, which we also term outdoor burning, land clearing burning, which is the large scale burning of debris for development, essentially, agricultural burning, and silvicultural burning. So that was something compliance department thought would be helpful for them in educating people about how to go about getting the proper permits and making sure they were doing the proper things when they were looking to dispose of organic waste. And that's really what my job is to help change behavior and make sure people are doing the right thing through education rather than through after the fact enforcement. So, and that's what compliance wants to do. That's what I want to do. That's what Fran and the entire ORCAA team wants to do, is change behavior through education and outreach as much as possible. So that's an example of our recent type of material. I also handle special projects such as our previously our school bus program, our diesel program, and under that, I think Bill brought up, he worked with Clallam Transit. In the past, we provided funding to Clallam Transit to help them transition to biodiesel and electric vehicles in their fleet. I've also worked most recently with our wood smoke reduction grant, which is our wood stove replacement program. On that, we have a current grant covering 2 years for $295,000 from the state, and that covers Thurston, most of eastern Clallam and Mason counties. And we have right now allocated almost all of those $295 for 222 projects. It looks like we'll have reduced outdoor burning through that wood smoke reduction by 625 cords of wood and almost 21 tons of particulate matter pollution in essentially a year and a half out of a 2-year program. Fran and I have a meeting next week as part of the state committee. Hopefully we'll be able to grab a few more bucks from the state to continue that through June, but right now I've fully expended or fully allocated all of our funds. We haven't fully expended them, but we've committed those to projects for the full year. So that is pretty much the outreach program. For the new board members, again, I'm the PIO. We handle all of our own internal publications. We do self-publishing of brochures, newsletters. I work with our IT person, Nick Grant, and maintain our website. We have a very robust website that has a great deal of public records available on it. I'm a former newspaper person, so I'm a big believer in transparency and public exposure. So you'll see on our website, for instance, on the homepage under public records, all of our current air operating permits, which are those Title V of the Clean Air Act permits that Mark mentioned. All of those are listed with their permits. All of our registered sources, from the smallest gas stations up to those AOPs, are available on our website, as well as mapped, so you can see exactly where they're located on a Google map. All of our past asbestos permits and current permits that are out there are available on maps and in a database on our website. All of our past settled notices of violation, anybody that's received a fine from us and it's been settled through the process, those are all available going back at least 10 years. So we try to provide public records in a very transparent manner through our website. And that's a big part of what I believe our agency should be doing to be a clean, transparent public agency. And final thing I want to call out, I know Nick Grant, our IT person, does not make a regular report to the board, but I think it's important to note that Nick has done a phenomenal job in our IT department. Even today, when we were out of power until 10 minutes before the board meeting, to get the servers back up, get our website back up, and get the agency back up in time for this meeting. Takes a great deal of skill and finesse, and I just want to call out Nick, deserving for some kudos from the agency.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Nick. I didn't know we hosted our website. That's interesting. Okay. Any comments for Dan? Questions, Greg?
Yes, Dan, looking at this rules regarding fires brochure that you put together, I'm gonna beat my biochar drum for a little bit. I really appreciated the meeting I had with Robert and Fran talking about biochar, and not asking for any policy change right now, but I think it'd be great if this brochure mentioned how we are interpreting biochar as a backyard event or whatever. It fits into all of these 5 different categories, and just stating that it's treated like a burn, when a burn permit is required, a biochar would need a burn permit as well. So just mentioning of it and how it ties into the existing regulatory framework, I think would be great.
I would agree. Once we have an official policy, the beauty of doing internal publication is we can change these on the fly and get them online and get them in print in a matter of hours.
Great. And I think that right now it's just, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a biochar event is treated just like a burn event. So if you need a burn permit, so I think adding the effect would be helpful and in line with the
I'll talk to Robert and see if we can add that.
Other questions?
Hi, this is Bill Peach. I support Commissioner Brotherton's suggestion about advancing biochar. And I've actually studied it quite a bit. I know the lady that has been doing a lot of research and advocating for it. And I hope very much that we'll consider it and provide the, if you will, boundaries, the constraints for the operation. But it's a very, very effective proposal. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, as a new topic, it may be worth putting out a blog post as well as a special publication to let people know what biochar is and how they can make use of that technology.
Well, it would also be helpful, I think, for the board to get a 101, so we're all on the same page, Dan. So if you and Fran can think about that in the coming months.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dan. So we're going to go now to Lynn with the finance and administrative update. And just want to point out the clock. So we're about 20 minutes from wrapping up.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Jim. So I just have a couple items. First of all, most importantly, of course, is our second quarter financial report for the fiscal period ending December 2020. So this is going to cover 6 months of our fiscal year, and you'll find this behind B2, and it's labeled Chair Finance Committee Report, because typically the chair is the one who is reporting back to the full board. Due to the lack of not being able to meet prior to our regular board meeting, I will go ahead and provide that on her behalf, Cynthia Pratt. We have an annual budget for fiscal year 2021 that the board approved, $2,562,960. And column number 3 shows you that we have currently received $1,193,685 in revenue over the various funding sources. Up at the top, Title V, Mark has already described the detail behind that program. We collect those revenues typically on a quarterly basis from our 11 or 10 sources, and we received $293,000 from that particular revenue source. Overall, we've collected 47% of our revenue. And there are some funding sources that are come in later in the year, such as with our annual assessments that are billed to all of our municipalities on our 6-county region. We budgeted $451,908, and in January we will start receiving those funds, as that's beginning of January is when the invoices were mailed. And we are getting them because I made a large deposit yesterday. And again, I'm just going to highlight a couple areas for you. And typically with the finance department, we go line by line in detail, but just to highlight some of those areas. We have a number of grants that we administer in the agency, specifically the wood stove education, the wood smoke reduction, the ecology PM 2.5, the Chica Peak, the community scale air toxics, and both the core federal and state and the FSEC. And on the far right-hand side, you'll see where it's broken down, the collection of revenues. We've collected 75% of our fees of the $1.1 million received to date. 21% was represented by our grants, and then there were 3% was other, and that has to do with our building rental income. As far as the fee revenues, that would include our Title V, major sources with the NOC, NOI, our registration, our assessments, asbestos, and land clearing. Comparing to the revenue that we received 6 months into the year for fiscal year 2021, in comparison to fiscal year 2020, you'll see that we're almost on par. 49% last year at this time, 47% this year. At this point, we're not seeing any issues with the collection and meeting our budgetary revenue requirements, but we're definitely monitoring that on an ongoing basis, Fran and myself. If there's any questions on the revenue, I'm happy to entertain. Otherwise, I will move on to expenditures. Okay. For the expenditures, obviously, 2.5 million in expenditures was budgeted. We have expended 1.2 million in our expenditures. We're on target with our salaries and benefits, both this year and last year, which makes sense to be about where we should be, almost 49%. For the non-payroll of office supplies, very minimal travel that has taken place, our telephone, our insurance that we pay to Honduras for the insurance on our building that we own, our vehicle fleets and bonding, errors and emissions, including printing, our rental satellite office. We are slightly under at 43% this year. Last year at this time, 52%. for our operational maintenance of our building, we're about where we should be, 54%. It's slightly higher. Well, it's slightly lower than last year at this point, but one, we're not occupying the building full time. And we're also, our tenants, the 9 tenants we have, not only are they part-time tenants, but they're very part-time tenants now due to the phases of the COVID. And with our operational of our programs, our wood smoke reduction, our oversight, our monitoring expenditures, we're slightly under, as to be expected. Odell had indicated earlier that there was some issues accessing our monitoring sites, and that plays into the cost of traveling and going to these sites. But we're about 40%, slightly under where we should be at 50. And at this time last year, we were at 61%. So overall on our expenditures, we've expended 48% this year versus 51% last year. And we are where we should be at this point in time. So that is good news to report. Any questions so far on the expenditures and revenue before we move to page 2 of the fund balance? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Jim. I see you loud and clear. Thank you. All right, page 2, the fund balance. What this is a snapshot, basically our checking account with Thurston County Treasurers. It is showing you where we started our checking account or our fund balance, July 1, 2020, with 1.7 million. It ties in with the expenditure and revenue report we just shared, receiving 1.1 million in revenue, expending 1.2 million in expenditures. As of 12/31/20, we have $1.6 million in our fund with Thurston County. To be determined, we do not know if we're going to be using any of our residual at this point. We know as we get closer to the last quarter of the year, and we'll report. And again, we monitor this very closely. The next section of the fund balance shows our board established contingency funds. These contingency funds include an emergency reserve, or I should say contingency in the event there's a catastrophic need to be using these funds. The tenant security deposits for our 9 tenants, our office building contingency that we're building up to replace our roof, the monitoring equipment. There are needs in the monitoring department when replacements are necessary. Our database, we are definitely looking at replacing our database, and we know we need slightly more funds than that to get to that point. And then of course the vacation sick leave, there is that allocation that is for the staff's accrual of vacation and sick. So those contingencies amount to $833,671. We do have a Title V negative reserve of $56,000 that was also shared with you earlier during Mark's presentation. And our unreserved at this point is $912,000. So right now we are sitting in a good position, and we hope we're able to maintain that. Looking for any questions at this point. And Fran, if you would like to add anything, I just have a couple more other items to just chat with the board on and share. Okay, I just submitted our Ewell City application to Association Washington Cities. That was due, well, will be due at the end of the month. And that application, if awarded to ORCAA, will in turn give us a 2% reduction on our medical premiums, an amount to about $5,000. We look at anything and everything in terms of savings. And then lastly, Mr. Cooper asked that staff look at and report back on our solar energy options for the agency. And Jim, I'm happy to defer this until next board meeting due to timing, if you so choose. And because it's really not going to make any difference at this point if I share today or next board meeting.
Yeah, let's save that. I think it's, you know, timely for the new budget and the payoff of the building next year.
Okay, and I did talk to Mason Roll, and he was most helpful, and it was great talking to him. So thanks for that referral and recommendation.
Yeah, I just got a bid at my house just to throw out at 26% federal tax credit. So just if anybody's thinking about solar, it's pretty interesting right now. Okay, so thank you, Lynn. Any questions? Okay, Fran, you have the final report.
Okay, thank you. So staff still have been working really, really well. I mean, we're still mostly working remotely. And as you can tell by our budget, we're producing. We've got policies that we've developed that other area agencies have now utilized in terms of guidance for how we're out there doing inspections. Because again, the key is to keep everybody safe and healthy and trying as best we can to get the workload completed. Take this off again. Mark mentioned at Sierra Pacific. We've worked hard with them. They actually got their, when the power was off, I'd been talking to them about, they paid their invoice yesterday. We didn't have any public comments. The comment period ended on Friday. And they were supposed to get their permit this morning. And so I came in, we didn't have any power, but we were able to, Mark came in and we were able to actually sign the permit. And I gave them a call and said, you're good to go. So they've now replaced 2 of their 8 dry kilns. Those 2 dry kilns are now up and running today. They actually have power in Aberdeen, so they're going ahead. And they'll be replacing the other 6 over a period of time to increase the board feet that they're able to produce. So that's really good for SPI. Legislative session, as you all know, started on the 11th, and we follow legislation. We work with the other air agencies and ecology. So I follow legislation, and it looks like most of the testimony this year will be virtual based upon our present situation. And just as a reminder, we will be bringing you a presentation in February at the board meeting on outdoor burning. So that was something that was discussed last year. And I will be sending an email out to the new board members and literally anybody else that wants to participate, but the new board members in particular, to do a meeting to talk about, you know, what we're all about, and I'll have different staff be part of that meeting to give their input. And if new board members or existing board members want to participate, you know, the existing board members, please let me know. Excuse me, if you have any particular questions that you would like us to address, let me know that also. So it'll be a broad overview of what ORCAA does, our regulations. We function under state, local, and our own regulations. And I'm hopeful that most people got, I know Debbie was able to email out copies of our binder that you have. Hopefully you'll be able to take a quick look at that. And we try to update the binder when we amend legislation, et cetera, or regulations. But the binder's, I think, pretty inclusive in terms of how we function. And we will try to, you know, keep that up to date. But again, if you have any particular questions or areas that you would like us to focus on, please let me know that as we're developing our presentation. And to keep on, we've got 6 minutes left until noon time. So I think that is about it. I anticipate that we'll be, sadly, I'm sorry we have to do this, but I'm assuming we'll be, you know, doing our Zoom meetings probably until, I'm guessing, June. It depends on how vaccinations go, whether we can actually bring you all into the building. So at this point, assume we're going to be doing Zoom for the next number of months, 6 months or so. But please stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, Fran. Yeah, and if our cars don't work anymore when that happens, we might need a ride. Okay, so any questions for Fran? Okay, so that takes us to good of the order. I have 2 items, just real quick. Bill, if you wouldn't mind, can you please extend our thanks to Mary Ellen for serving on the board? And Fran, if you wouldn't mind, could you send her an email on our behalf and just thank her for her service? She's been around, I want to say 6 or 7 years. So I think it's a good.
I shall actually, and I'll share with you that Mary Ellen shared. This is a wonderful board to be involved with.
And before you go, we ordered something, and Debbie has it. We waited. Now with this morning being so crazy, we ordered a gift for. And we have it, so I'll show it to you. I don't know if you can see that. But basically, it's wood. It's got a pen. It's got a place to put. It's got a place to put notes. And it thanks him for his leadership on the board. He was on the board for 8 years. I did actually have a conversation with Mary Ellen and thanked her for being just great. I'm very thrilled
Thank
that we have a
you.
relationship with her. So she will be hearing from me periodically, and so, but she just sounded like she just got so much on her plate, as Bill said. So we welcome Bill as her replacement. But I will mention to her, I will call her. I like chatting with her, and we have conversations about a variety of things. So I will mention the board sends their thanks also.
Great, thank you, Fran.
Please do. Mary Ellen is a quiet hero, and she'll appreciate it.
Cool. And then just Fran, for the board's benefit, can you remind us if this year is a personnel evaluation year for you, and whether or not this is an election year for the board? I was trying to remember what happened last year, and for some reason 2020 is a blur in my mind.
So last year I did have my evaluation. So it's a non-evaluation year for me. But I'm certainly, obviously, always welcome to get comments and, questions. And, if you have issues, please let me know. Again, for me, it's a continual evaluation. I'm open for your comments and questions and concerns. And for board, February is the month that we look at committee assignments. So we need, and obviously with Ty going off, we'll need to reconstitute the finance committee. And in terms of, did you ask about chair and vice chair? Is that what the other question you had?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if we elected last year or if it was the year before. I know it's a 2-year cycle.
And April is our year, and you know what, I can't remember.
Okay.
I think we did it last year. I'm pretty sure we did it last year, but I will make sure.
Okay, cool.
I'll let you know for sure. I think we.
And for the new members, Fran's on a contract, and that we do an evaluation and a renewal every 2 years.
And this contract is a 4-year contract.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the contract is longer. Thank you.
Yeah, the contract is up in May, June 30th of 2022.
Okay, great. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the concise thoroughness today. It's really helpful for the new members. So.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for the quote, Dan.